Now it's time for technical session. So now please remain seated as very shortly we are going to start our first technical session.
Havale, former president the ICSI, by presenting a planter. We welcome you, sir. CS Mahesh Athavale is the Vice President and member of Governing Council of Deccan Society. He is also the Chairman of the Institute of Management Development and Research with professional experience of 32 years. His areas of practice include representation services at NCLT on operation and mismanagement matters and corporate restructuring matters, SEBI-related laws and regulation and listing compliances. We welcome you, sir. I now request CS Suresh Pandey is there? I request President sir. President sir, please join us on the dais to welcome CS Manoj Panthia ji. Practicing Company Secretary, Kolkata, by presenting a planter. A huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. CS Manoj Kumar Banthia is the managing partner of MKB and Associates, practicing company secretaries with experience of, thank you sir, with experience of practicing in the field of corporate laws for around 30 years. His core areas of practice are corporate litigation, insolvency and bankruptcy code. We welcome you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, now we move forward into the heart of deliberations, the technical session that promises to provide deep insights and perspectives aligned with the overarching theme of the conference. Every technical session gains its strength from a well-anchored sub-theme, and to introduce that sub-theme and set the context of today's discussion, we have with us distinguished professional, a thought leader in his own right, Shri Narasimhan ji, former president, the ICSI and session coordinator. We welcome you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, all of you. Dignitaries on the dais, For the sake of time, I don't want to take the names of all the dignitaries. You already heard who are all on the dais. Well, the topic which we got is on secretarial audit and annual secretarial compliance report. Last year was a very significant year for all of us. In fact, I would say a landmark decision was made by SEBI in giving huge recognition to the profession. We have been clamoring for a long period of time that our profession is no way inferior to that of any other profession. And formal recognition came whereby SEBI recognized that the appointment of the secretarial auditor should be on par with that of a statutory auditor. And therefore, our appointment will be done by the shareholders in a general body meeting and will be for a period of 5 years, which will help maintain the independence which is required of the secretarial auditor. Now, this is the first step which has come in, and by another circular which was issued on 31st December, they gave certain areas which we should not be involved in as a secretarial auditor. Kuch kehte hain na, because people were upset about certain things which was prohibited by SEBI, saying that which was earlier being done. But in order to maintain sanctity of the secretarial audit, they have deliberately removed it, and they have specified these are prohibited areas. And as far as they also went through the process of asking ICSI to come out the detailed circular in terms of identifying what will be permitted areas. So that has already been done. कुछ कहते हैं ना, बहुत कुछ मिलता है जिंदगी में, but गिनती उसी की होती है जो हासिल नहीं हो सका. तब तक तो हम तो we were not able to get it, then we were clamoring for it. Once we got it, when we feel that this should also be there, वो उसके बारे में भी बोलते हैं, इच्छाएं बड़ी बेवफा होती है, पूरे होते ही बदल जाती है. यही situation है. But anyway, all said and done, the second one, which is on the annual secretarial compliance report, again a very significant one. I'm sure all of you would have gone through the concept paper which was put up by SEBI on the 7th of February 2025, where they have identified what will all be coming under annual secretarial compliance report. There are significant changes over here. This is only a concept paper. The response received from the public will be analyzed by the committee, and a final decision will be taken before it's being presented to SEBI board for their concurrence and approval. The significant changes over here is there are certain certificates which the practicing company secretary ought to give, which is getting combined under the annual secretarial compliance report, which includes the director disqualification certificate, which also includes the ESOP certificate, which is to be given at the end of the year, and most importantly, the corporate governance certificate. Currently, corporate governance certificate is given by a practicing company secretary or by a chartered accountant or the statutory auditor. Invariably, in fact, initially it was only in the hands of the statutory auditor, because based on the perseverance and the effort which we put in, we formally got the recognition that even a company secretary, practicing company secretary, can give the corporate governance certificate. Now, this will be encompassed in the annual secretarial compliance report. That would mean in future, the corporate governance certificate will be in the exclusive domain of the company secretary in practice. So that is again a big victory for us. We will await what will be the final decision coming from SEBI. So having said this, this is a very, very critical one for the company secretaries in practice. But incidentally, let me also tell you by the same breath that the circular of 12th December also gave one notch for the company secretary in employment, where it said he will be one level below the board. In other words, your reporting line will be to the board member, not to any other employee in the company. That is what the intention began, because I was part of the committee and I am privy to all the discussion which took place in the committee meeting in terms of these decisions being taken. So we have with us the panelists you have already seen, who have already been identified. So they will be sharing their quick thoughts. Each one will take about 5 to 7 minutes to share their thoughts before we put up some questions for the panelists. And thereafter, we will open the session for the participants to raise their questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I now request our session chair, Ms. Kamla K., Chief Regulatory Officer, BSE Limited, to please take the session ahead.
Very good afternoon to everyone. I know it is that portion of the day where it is very difficult to keep ourselves awake for a dry subject like secretarial audit, but we will do our best. And we had a very lovely, wonderful session, and I'm happy to be in Guwahati to attend this 26th National Conference of this Company Secretaries Institute. And 26 is a big number, and I should appreciate and acknowledge efforts by the Institute in continuously conducting such programs so as to spread awareness to all the company secretaries. Coming to today's subject, Secretarial Audit and Annual Compliance Certificate, 2 subject lines. But before that, little bit of a macro perspective from my end. Company secretaries are in existence in securities market space in different forms, some in the form of valuers, some partly merchant bankers, some in other forms, but whichever dimension of the business you represent, your flagship attributes of your profession you must carry. And we think secretarial audit also, lot of water has flown, we have reached a mature stage, etc., etc. But when we look at these reports at exchange end for the 5,000 companies that we oversee, I'm talking about, at least we have not found any major discoveries by company secretaries. That means to say our corporate India is working hunky-dory, fine, nothing problematic at all. Please read some of the orders in last 6 months that SEBI has passed. Results are there for all of us to tell. In fact, last week, without citing the name, I can quote an example. Last week, we were looking at last 1 year data of preference capital by a company. And when we went back 1 year, that company over 9 months period, every day had issued preference capital. So what kind of report would I expect from such secretarial audit? I would like some highlighting. What could have gone wrong? But nothing of that has come. A very clean chit saying that everything is hunky-dory has come. See, when stock exchanges and regulators look at the performance of a company, lot of reliance is placed on the assurance by statutory auditor on financial aspects and secretarial audit on all the adherence to law when it comes to securities law. So we think as responsible professionals, we should do justice to the job we are doing. Don't even get confused that I am talking only about the secretary side. Equally problematic will be on the company side. There are best companies, there are not so good companies, and there are worst companies. When companies are not forthcoming and sharing information, or when you are not asking questions and simply signing a certificate and giving, there are risks that are attached, because last 1 year you would have seen number of orders that have come. The flood of applications that are there in SME that we are seeing, and the valuation reports that are coming we are seeing, all of this gives us enough food for thought to reflect and introspect and see what changes can be brought in quality of audit in terms of format, text, and how to upload. All this, I think enough procedural aspects exist. But qualitatively, how to live up to the expectation of investor commitment, how investor relies on the assurances, exchanges rely on the assurances, how to live up to that is the food for thought that I want you all to be applying on. And I'm sure you all, the profession has done extremely well, has played a very important role in the corporate journey and corporate growth. And also one other perspective that I carry is statutory audit versus secretarial audit. Scope could be different, I don't deny. But the format, text, somebody is asking, conflict, should secretarial audit be subject to conflict? What holds good for statutory auditor will hold good for a secretarial audit. Is it a question to be asked? Are we saying that even if it's conflicted, I don't need to disclose, I will certify? Then what kind of reliance? And are we disclosing to the market that you are conflicted? So that means I'm not being transparent. That defeats the very purpose of transparent market that we are talking about. So these are my few initial thoughts. Nothing to take away credit from the wonderful service that you have rendered. But like in any group, there are outliers. When I find outliers, how do I deal with it? And when professionals do not live up to the mark and join hands to give certificate without verification, what kind of an action and enforcement the institute has to initiate is also a thought that I want the institute to consider.
Thank you, Kamala. I think wonderful, very happy about it. Let's have Sabha to give her opening remarks, please.
Good evening, everybody. At the onset, I would like to thank ICSI for inviting us for this wonderful session. So moving on to the topic of the expectations from the secretarial compliance report. Like we heard what Sir said, the recent amendments and the recent consultation which has been brought about by SEBI. So the bar has been really set very high, and the expectations from the company secretaries, from the PCS and the secretarial audit has really increased manifold with the recent amendments and the regulatory landscape. One such key expectation I would like to mention is the independent verification by the company secretaries and the secretarial auditors that we expect. So just to take one example, now this topic is very debatable, we understand. Just to take one example, we come across examples where companies are submitting disclosures here and there. Annual quarterly disclosures are submitted, however, the company is not found to be present at its location. So the operations are not there. Such observations are missing from the secretarial audit or the secretarial compliance report as well. Now, the actions taken by the regulators, even such observations are being missed in the secretarial compliance report. We as an exchange, when we view such submissions, it is not just compliance-based submission, it is not just submissions and penalty, but we look at it in a holistic manner. We try to link various disclosures and whether, what are the interlinkages between the disclosures and whether these has been covered by the secretarial auditor, PCS, etc. is what we try to see. And we expect that whatever the observations are highlighted at least by the PCS and the secretarial auditors. Just to look at the data for around 1900 submissions that we received last year, there are almost 500 companies wherein the observations have been made by the PCS or the secretarial auditor. Rest, there are no observations. Moreover, there are certain cases where there are 100 plus cases where there are observations have been missed. So these are very obvious observations, actions taken by the regulator, etc., which have not been covered in the report. So one such expectation from the auditor becomes that such obvious actions should not be missed, and it should be forming a part of the report, because it ultimately reflects on the quality of the report that comes up. It is no longer a compliance checklist, and it is much a qualitative report that is being given, and the expectation from the stakeholders is really high. That is what I would like to say.
Thank you, Sabha. But I want to quickly respond to what some of your observations which you made about 174 companies. The list was given to us. We have done a detailed examination, and now that we find that the certificate has been, the annual cyclical compliance report has been given on 26 May, and on 29th May a penalty has been imposed. So there is no way we can bring that into the certificate, why it's not been brought out. But most importantly, what is worrying is there has been instances where the annual cyclical compliance report includes the observation or qualification by the auditor, but when it's being filed in XBRL, the company has obliterated from that report itself. Now that is what is a great concern. I don't know how to address it, but we'll be sharing the figures with you and the details, and obviously we look at what action you can take. Can I request now my good old friend Mahesh Bhai to give his opening remark?
Good afternoon. I'll put my thoughts in bullet points because time is running out and we have lost half of the time of this session. The first and foremost is, in order to ensure the independence of Secretarial Auditor, I'm putting some proposal to you whether we can consider appointment of Secretarial Auditor through some central agency and don't leave it to the board to recommend or shareholders to appoint, like bank audits, whether that will ensure the independence of Secretarial Auditor. There could be various dimensions. I'm just putting a thought for your further pondering. Second is, as we know that Secretarial Auditor can be appointed for 2 consecutive terms and not thereafter, and certain services cannot be rendered. So there was a thinking whether we should split the firm and make some of our partners continue to render those services which are prohibited by Secretarial Auditor. So it's a kind of a circumvention. I think understanding the spirit of law, we should never ever indulge into that, and don't do anything which you cannot do directly, don't do anything indirectly also. So that circumvention should not happen. Let us understand the intentions of the regulators, why they have prohibited us from rendering certain services, and if at all anybody is planning to do something like this, better refrain from that. That is my view. As far as relationship between ECS, that is Employee Company Secretary, and Practicing Company Secretary is concerned, we should not look at each other like enemies, because invariably as an auditor I have to point out mistakes, omissions, and invariably there are fights between an employee CS and a practicing CS who has to do his job honestly, and as an auditor that is his job. He has to give pathological report. He can't give a goody-goody report even he observes something missing. And then there are arguments, there are heated exchanges, and at times it is possible that to treat each other as enemies. I think that view should not be there. We should discuss the issues, debate various options, and there are umpteen number of situations where one may not agree to a view expressed by another person. Then the simple way out is a practicing secretary who is going to do the audit should mention his point with the facts, and perhaps if he thinks appropriate, he may also mention the view expressed by the management, that is the employee secretary. Or in any case that will be answered by the director's report if they are not agreeing with your view, and situation is or occasions are not very rare. As far as statutory auditors are concerned, CA auditors, there are occasions where auditor will express something to which management may not agree. One should not be hesitant to express his views, of course with due care, diligence, because any adverse comment, any qualification given by the secretarial auditor is nothing but a tool in the hands of regulator to prosecute the company. So it should not happen that we are giving just for the sake of it our view, That should never happen. We should be able to substantiate that. Now, there has been an occasions where Secretarial Auditor, in the past also when there was no restriction, he was asked informally, what is your opinion in advance, so that if that action is taken by the company, at the end of the year, Secretarial Auditor should not qualify the report. I hope I am making my point clear. Suppose company wants to take a particular action and there are 2-3 different options available, 2-3 views, and there is no clarity about the law. Take for example, qualification of independent directors. The restriction is there that he should not have pecuniary relationship with the company or any pecuniary transaction which exceeds 10% of his income. However, remuneration is exempted. Now, one issue was whether the remuneration also is capped to 10%. If you would have seen the Uday Kotak committee report, in that he has suggested that it should not be a case where a person calls himself as an independent director and 90% of his income comes from a particular company just because, and you claim to be an independent because the remuneration received as a director is exempt. No, there could be issue on this. Ideally, you should have some discussions and then form your opinion. Once you form an opinion, one should not hesitate in expressing that. Understand the difference in opinion, report and certificate. There are 3 words which are often used interchangeably, but certificate has to be perfect. We are certifying the fact. Report may have some opinion which is being expressed by the professional. So this distinction has to be understood. As far as other laws compliance is concerned, maybe I think all of us, we need not have expert knowledge on, for example, if I am doing secretarial audit of a pharma company, then I have to ensure and I have to certify whether company has complied with the specific laws applicable to that company. Now, how do I do that? I don't have expertise in laws applicable to pharma company or some industry specific laws, or some company like chemical company, there would be pollution control related laws. Now, how do I ensure that? Now, in my view, we should take support of an expert on the question whether a PCS rely on some expert's opinion. The answer is yes, provided the reliance is reasonable. And what is reasonable is a question of fact. We can't have back-to-back certificate. And let me also put a word of caution that taking management representation letter is a good practice, and it has to be there, because otherwise, for example, if I have to confirm that minutes are properly recorded and the view expressed by any director which is which is a different view, he has expressed a negative vote, then it has to be recorded. Now, how do I ensure that? Because I was not present in the board meeting. So for such a situation, I have to rely on the representation letter given by the management. However, there can't be a back-to-back certificate. And there are some decided cases on this, to what extent auditor can rely on the expert's opinion. My point here is that we should be very reasonable in putting all these things. Last point is about fees. Please charge reasonable fees. I think putting 50,000, 75,000 rupees, I really wonder how a PCS can afford. And then he claims that within so much fee I can give only this kind of a time and I can't spend more than this. This can't be an excuse. I think we all should learn something from it, and please desist from going for undercutting and prove yourself. Management should invite you as a pathologist to understand where they went wrong so that mistakes are not repeated. Thank you.
Thanks, Mahesh. I don't want to get into a dispute with you right now. Maybe we'll have a offline meeting on some of the points which you've raised. I now request Manoj.
Thank you, Narasimhan Saab, and good evening to every one of you. Friends, I have been listening to the other panelists, and I personally feel that the answer to most of these problems would lie in effective and proper use of auditing standards. The Institute has come out with 4 auditing standards, as you all are aware, and I consider these 4 to be the 4 pillars of a temple. And without them, the entire structure would collapse. And that is what has been seen in almost all SEBI orders, all NAFRA orders as well. So adherence to secretarial standards is very, very essential. And once you adhere to secretarial standards, most of the issues relating to secretarial audit or annual secretarial compliance report would automatically be taken care of. Now, how do you effectively address, how do you effectively use these secretarial auditing standards? The tools that you need to use according to me for effective use of secretarial auditing standards is, one is consistency. Every regulator expects us to be consistent in our approach. The standards also expect us to be consistent in our approach. If all of us company secretaries start singing, dancing to different tunes, just imagine what a chaos it would create. Consistency often results in reliable and more acceptable solution, information which can be shared with the regulators, which can be shared with all the stakeholders. So I would feel that yes, it is like a recipe to bake a cake, and all of you stop putting your special ingredient and stop using the consistent ingredient, then perhaps the cake would taste better. The second tool which I would expect all of you to adhere to while following auditing standards is that of I would say objectivity. Now friends, the second I would say is diligence. You have to be thorough in what you are doing. An audit is not a two-day job. An audit is not sending your trainees or your subordinates to an auditee's office and just asking him to note down points which you take from minutes or which you take from some other records. An audit requires a thorough, elaborate, planning. It requires a thorough and elaborate and extensive collection of evidence. It requires documentation of almost everything that you do during the entire phase of audit that you are conducting. And this documentation is actually the evidence of what work you have actually done. This audit documentation is, do you know Watson, what Watson was to Sherlock Holmes? Or what Ajit Bandyopadhyay was to Byomkesh Bakshi? Your audit documentation is that diary which tells your story to the whole world, what you did and why you did. So this again, whenever any regulator questions you, your audit documentation will actually answer for you as to why you did what you did. The third most important thing is objectivity. You have to have professional skepticism. You have to question everything. You are not a bloodhound. But at the same time, you have to approach an audit with an open mind. Arey yaar, this employee company secretary is my friend. He has given me this job. वो अगर बोलता है सब कुछ सही है तो सही होगा. That cannot be an approach to the audit. The audit has to start with skepticism. The audit has to question everything. Even if the management tells you that yes, this particular thing has been done, you have to see for yourself. You have to see those documents. You have to see those records to satisfy yourself that yes, those particular things have actually been done. And see objectivity. Once you have objectivity means what? You are solely relying on the evidence that has been put before you. You are not, influenced by any other influences. You are not looking anywhere else. You are solely relying on that particular evidence, and then you are forming an opinion. The moment you stop looking at anywhere else, the moment you stop looking at assurances, the moment you stop looking at biases, the moment you start looking at any conflict of interest that you may have, and the moment you solely rely on only the evidence that is before you, you automatically have an independent state of mind. So objectivity will always lead to independence, and independence is what that is required of an auditor. Independence is the superhero. So once you have objectivity, your independence is automatically achieved. And the last important tool that you need to have is of transparency and reporting. Your reports have to be very clear and unambiguous. Your reports have to consider the element of materiality. Your reports have to report all those significant events which you feel can have an impact on the affairs of the company. And that is left best to your professional judgment. So friends, I think with these 4 tools, perhaps you can effectively use auditing standards, and the moment you effectively use the auditing standards, the quality of your audit, the ethical requirements of your audit, all will be taken care of. I must only add one more thing here, that use of auditing standards will also save you, will also protect you from professional liability. That is the only evidence that you have to tell the world that, yes, see, this is what I did for what I did. You can protect yourself by presenting the audit evidence and telling the regulators or telling whoever has come for reviewing those audit papers as to why you did what you did. And finally, Madam referred to several orders. You can also see several NAFRA orders in the last 1 year or 1.5 years. Multi-year bans have been imposed. Don't feel happy that NAFRA is in relation to financial audit. It is a wake-up call to all of us. It is a lesson that we should learn. Professional skepticism, independence, thorough examination, these are true for any audit, whether it be financial or secretarial. And if you look at those orders, you will see that most of the cases, most of the lapses that have been pointed out are lapses in not complying with auditing standards, in not complying with standards of auditing. So my friends, I think you should take it as a wake-up call. You should comply effectively with auditing standards. All that you need to do is speak the truth and abide by the law. Satyam vada dharmam chara. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. That is wonderful. I'm also thankful to you for giving compliments to the Institute for bringing out this auditing standards. Look, friends, Manoj has to leave. He has got a flight to catch at 7:30. Therefore, what we will do now is, first he will be the target for the questions to be posed by the moderators. Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you, sir. Manoj sir, my first question to you. As a CSAS1 mandates receiving an audit engagement letter before accepting any audit to clarify, define the role and responsibility of both the auditor and the auditee. Can you highlight essential clause that should form part of engagement letter, keeping the view of recent LODR amendment pertaining to the secretarial auditor? Please.
In fact, Ashishji, I was just now, while coming in the flight, I was trying to understand what changes have been brought in and how it is going to impact my audit engagement letter. I feel that yes, besides whatever is provided in CSAS 1, the audit engagement letter now has to clearly provide for the eligibility criteria, the peer review requirements, the disqualifications. The audit engagement letter has to now clearly provide for the tenure of the auditors and the manner of their appointment, the tenure of their appointment, and if required, even removal. Then someone rightly mentioned, there are many things that you are permitted to do, there are many things that you are permitted not to do. Audit engagement letters should also take care and should also include all those issues. What that is permissible, what that is not permissible. I think audit engagement letter should also focus on independence and should clearly state that any auditor should not have any conflict of interest. And definitely the institute says that if you have a substantial conflict of interest, you cannot undertake the audit. But if you have any other conflict of interest, you have to disclose it. So audit engagement letter should also call for such disclosures. These are some few things which immediately come to my mind. There may be many more which others may add.
Manoj, I have a question for you before you leave the call. Emphasizing the importance of principles of objectivity. You've spoken a lot about objectivity and independence, but nevertheless, for the sake of repetition, I just still want to go ahead with this question. Objectivity of CSAS 3 requires that the audit opinion be based solely on evidence obtained and not on assumptions or external influence. How can practicing company secretary ensure independence and objectivity? You have spoken a lot about it. Nevertheless, for the benefit of everybody, you need to emphasize this all over again. While what are the company ensure independent objectivity while forming an audit opinion?
Narasimhan Saab, first of all, I should thank the Institute for bringing out that beautiful guidance note on auditing standards. If you look at the guidance note, it clearly says that if you solely rely only on the audit evidence that is placed before you and do not allow any other influence, any other assurance to cloud your judgment, then you are bound to be independent. If you are, I mean, it is such, it's like a magic. The moment you are objective, you become independent. The moment you don't, the moment you are only looking at that particular audit evidence and forming your opinion based only on that evidence, you cannot go wrong. There may be limitations to forming of your opinion, that's a different issue. But if you solely rely on audit evidence, I personally feel that yes, independence would be achieved. And objectivity and independence are hallmark of any audits. That's it. Right.
Thank you, Manoj. I think I'm relieving you 15 minutes in advance of the committed time. I request the organizers to share the memento.
Thank you, CS Manoj Banthia, sir, for your address and for handling questions and answers from practitioner's point of view. I request Narasimhan, sir, to kindly present a memento as a token of appreciation to CS Manoj Banthia. Please put your hands together. Thank you, sir. Ashish, sir, we request you to propose vote of thanks. Okay, so we'll take questions first.
Now my question to Sabhaji. Ma'am, as you are head of listing compliance NSE, and in your experience, what are the most common gaps of instance where you feel that the reporting has failed to bring clear picture of the events? What need to be looked upon or improving areas for company secretary working in areas?
So to highlight a few gaps that we see, the commonly observed gaps across the submissions that we received is the company secretaries, the PCS, when they mention the observations, they give vague, the observations are not clearly mentioned. So for example, if they are giving, highlighting a particular non-compliance, the period of the event, the occurrence of the event, etc. is not mentioned. So in such scenarios, it also becomes difficult for the exchange to identify what was the non-compliance. Although the observations are mentioned, but if you do not give details about it, the meaning of the observation is taken away. So that is to be taken care of. Secondly, the aligning with the regulation 30 disclosures. If there is a non-compliance of one particular regulation, the auditor has to also check whether it triggers any other non-compliance, and such interlinkages should be highlighted. These are few common areas that we see which are getting missed.
Thank you, Sabha. I think I have a question to be shared with Ms. Kamala. She's a quasi-regulator sitting at BSE. So a question for you, ma'am. Can sectoral audit report be leveraged beyond compliance to add strategic value to the board and its stakeholders? If yes, how can sectoral audit report can impact areas such as corporate strategy, risk management, decision-making processes, etc.?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. If you look at from a corporate entity's perspective, they already are mandated under various law. Firstly, they have a statutory audit, they have an internal audit, and for risk management, they have a board level committee which is already there. And for that also, they will be undertaking a risk management exercise which uses external parties. So, what should be the segregation between roles and responsibilities, and what aspects are there in secretarial portion which can be strengthened? I think if I reflect and see, first of all, secretarial audit right now in the current form is more or less checklist based, and qualitative aspects are slightly missing in that. Second, see, in statutory accounts, no, we say you do a audit for a period, but before signing off your report, if any material significant event is there, that warrants a disclosure. So similar to that, between secretarial audit periods, if any material secretarial angle issue comes up with a company, should that also be subject to secretarial audit then and there, and the prescription that that audit should be done should be mandated? If not, if that is practically difficult keeping in line with the timeline requirements, at least in the subsequent secretarial audit, suppose you are carrying out secretarial audit for 31st March in the month of May, between April and May something is happening during that period, whether your previous report could also cover the events, material events that are taking place is one thing, I think. The other thing qualitatively is, see, your secretary's core area is Securities Law and Companies Act. And there was also one question in what you had circulated which said, what was the perspective? Why was the secretarial audit in the first place required? Was a question you had posed. I've been associated with this market for long. First time secretarial audit got mentioned somewhere late 90s and early 2000s was because there was huge capital mismatch. Paid up capital reported versus capital reflected. And when we brought in DMAT, reconciliation of this capital was a nightmarish affair. That saw the birth of secretarial audit. And afterwards we have started adding more and more to it. But corporate events, the secretarial auditor is expected to verify the records. The need for it also came because whenever some document was asked, a resolution got manufactured and produced as though real meeting had happened. In many cases, paper meetings were happening, real meetings were not happening, and people used to just give what you wanted. If I as a regulator ask, they manufacture the paper and give. To add sanity to the practices. Not that all companies were doing, but there were companies who were doing. To add sanity to the process and to have a complete assurance, this concept of secretarial audit came. Whether coverage of secretarial audit can be enhanced, answer is definitely yes, especially if major issues have come, major fundraise has happened, or some vague kind of preferential issues have happened. See, last 2 years, we are seeing, we flagged that preferential issue was a root cause for many of the problems. The minute we flagged and we started seeing action on those, people shifted gear. Now what is the latest that is happening? People will raise money through rights because that is very quick. And the issue, people who are meant to subscribe will not subscribe. They will renounce it in somebody's favor. And that renounced person can get more allotment than what is available. So all these are kind of practices which are evolving. How to gear up secretarial auditor to catch it on the run rather than looking for a prescription based approach is what I would think, sir.
Thanks, Kamala, but I want to quickly butt in on one topic which you said about the 2000 circular. That circular was named as secretarial audit. It was a bit of a misnomer. It was more of a reconciliation of capital. That is what it was. And in fact, when we later on took it up with SEBI, that's already there. Then we explained to them that is not a secretarial audit. That's only reconciliation of capital. That was need of the hour. And subsequently, it was plugged through a concept of taking in principle approval from the stock exchange before the company comes out of the issue. Therefore, that was basically plugged, but the quarterly certification still is being done for all listed companies. But I mean, even that, in my view, need not be done at all. It's a lot of control has come in anyway. Okay, Ashish, your question.
Again, my question to you, ma'am. The provision with respect to appointment, tenure, reappointment, removal, disqualification, and services not to be rendered were recently notified by SEBI for appointment of secretarial auditor of listed entities. Ma'am, in your view, should the regulators consider a similar amendment for all companies covered under Section 204 of the Companies Act?
So right now all SEBI prescriptions are applicable for listed entities. Your question is whether it should be extended to other kinds of companies, correct? In other kinds of companies, there are different types of companies, only private limited companies engaged in very limited activities. Probably extending the listed companies into publicly held companies may be a good proposition, but all the other small companies which are serving only basic needs of an entity need not be subject to it. Maybe it's too premature for them. Going forward, based on the experience we gain on these public listed public companies, then maybe we should extend. But for all the critical major infrastructure companies, project-oriented companies, even if they are not listed, whether they are adhering to fair decision-making process, whether governance yardsticks are applied or not, I think for them it should be necessarily extended. Wherever major projects are there, major public utility projects are there, this should be definitely looked into.
Thanks a lot, Kamala. I think we have my former president sitting idle for quite some time. Let me share a question for him. In your experience, what are the most common gaps or instances where you feel that the reporting has failed to bring clear... Sorry, that has already been done. That's not for you. Sorry, I missed out. So here it is. I missed. SEBI has restricted sectoral audit. This is very interesting because you already touched upon it in your opening remark, and I'm sure you will be elucidating it further. SEBI has restricted sectoral auditor from rendering various non-audit services to its client in order to maintain independence and objectivity of the audit process. Can you highlight some of the services that are not restricted for a sectoral auditor? Can PCS provide restricted services after completion of the term of appointment when he is in a cooling off period?
Institute has already replied to this answer by giving its view that what can be done by a secretarial auditor and what cannot be done. Certification of forms, acting as a scrutinizer, these are some of the questions which were immediately raised. And I think Institute has clarified, and we should go by the clarification given by the Institute. However, the question comes, something which I cannot do directly, I should not do indirectly either. That is something which all of us need to understand. Like, for example, suppose I was acting as a retainer of a company on a monthly fee of, say, 20,000 rupees. Can I become a secretarial auditor of that company simultaneously? The answer should be obviously no. Because as a retainer, I am advising the management for taking various strategic decisions. So I cannot sit on both sides of the table. Once we understand this logic, what is independence of auditor, perhaps we ourselves will be able to take that call. There are some issues like MR3, MGT8. Well, these are audits. So I don't think there is any problem in issuing those letters. But certainly there would be an issue of giving legal opinion. Perhaps that goes contrary to what auditor is supposed to do. Because giving an opinion means expressing one's opinion on a given critical situation, and which ultimately helps the management in deciding its strategy. You can take guidance from section 144 of the Companies Act, where chartered accountants also have a similar restrictions, and our own institute through CCGRT has come out with a publication on that. So I think guidance can be taken, but ultimately it is for a particular PCS to decide. And in my view, even if you have 1% doubt that this kind of service is likely to create a conflict, we should not go for it. That is my
Thanks, thanks Mahesh. I think since I was in the committee when this matter was discussed, we took great care in identifying a very restrictive area where it should not be done. Where it's whatever is going to be subsequently a matter of audit by you, that is not where you should get involved with the company. That's a broad idea basis on which it was done. Over to you. Go ahead.
Sir, Athawale sir, once again. The amendment LODR regulation allow firm of company secretaries in practice to be appointed as secretarial auditor for 2 consecutive terms of 5 years. How will this provision affect the competitive landscape among secretarial auditor firm, particularly small firm versus a large firm?
Well, this is not the only reason which will have impact on competition. I would say certainly there has to be some eligibility criteria for a PCS to become auditor of a listed company. because he has to have infrastructure, he has to have various tools available. So appointment of 5 years at a time is certainly going to have some impact, no doubt about it. Because once appointed, unfortunately there is no provision, at least I did not find, for removal of secretarial auditor. So my first suggestion would be, and I am sure Institute is working on it, provisions regarding appointment, removal, remuneration of statutory auditor, CA, I mean financial auditor. It should not be provided that they will apply mutatis mutandis, because that word cannot be applied like this. Let there be a separate subsection which takes care of various provisions, do's and don'ts for the appointment, reappointment and remuneration, removal also of a secretarial auditor. But for smaller firms, even in any case, it is difficult for them to get the assignments of secretarial audit for various reasons. So I don't see these are two different areas where even companies prefer some PCS with a good credibility, because ultimately members would look at the name of the firm who is going to do the audit. Otherwise, why multinational companies should prefer only top 4 chartered accountancy firms? Because of their name and fame, that's it.
Thanks, Mahesh, but I want to inform you about one critical aspect. Whatever is now introduced by SEBI is only for listed companies. We have had a detailed presentation to the ministry officials where Manish was present, Manish, me, and we were basically required to talk for about half an hour, but the meeting went on for nearly 2 hours when a presentation was given about the recommendation of one committee which was constituted by ICSI, of which I was the chairman in the year 2019, where we have dealt in great detail, and they were very receptive to these ideas. So whenever the Companies Act is getting amended, all of you can be rest assured that similar provision will also come in for unlisted companies as well, where secretarial auditor is mandatory. Therefore, whatever is applicable right now under the SEBI Act, similar provision will be included in the Companies Act regarding appointment of secretarial auditor, and therefore when it comes there, it obviously also goes ahead for listed as well as unlisted companies. Let me have a question for Saba.
Actually, can I have?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have only a small observation. I don't know whether all of you will agree. There is a lot of repetition in the columns provided in the secretarial audit report. Column 2, 3 and 4. If something can be done about it, that will really make the report reading effective.
You mean to say MR3 or annual secretarial compliance report?
Annual secretarial compliance report.
That's right.
There is a repetition.
Okay, when it's getting finalized, we will put in a word with SEBI on this. I'll ask the team, because I'm the chairman of the Financial Services Committee. Therefore, we look at what can be done about it. You can share your thoughts on that with me, and I can take it forward. Let me have a question for Saba. What is the expected standard of diligence and documentation that a practicing company secretary must maintain to satisfy regulatory scrutiny?
So looking at the kind of due diligence that the company secretary have now with the introduction of annual secretarial compliance report and XBRL, with the technology and the exchanges look at these submissions and disclosures very closely and in a holistic manner. So avoid having any tick boxing approach, and it should be looked at in a very comprehensive and holistic manner. Like I earlier said, the interlinkages between the regulations have to be highlighted, and one other aspect is the direct examination is also very important. Whatever data the companies provide, it is important for the auditor to also check whatever is available, say example in public domain, in MCA, other regulatory websites, exchange websites, and then to form an opinion. So yeah, this kind of due diligence is expected from the auditor.
Thank you.
So
I now open
I just want to add one point to what Sabha said.
Please go ahead.
See, in the financial side, working papers maintained by statutory auditors and the other kind of auditors have travelled multiple times to courts and judiciary, and lot of views have been taken. What has saved the audit firms is the documentation they had done. So like that, for secretarial audit, how do you maintain your working papers? What all document you will contain in that? It's worth examining is what I would think.
And that's part of the auditing standards which has been mentioned. We have given complete details about it. Thanks a lot. Now I'll open the questions to the floor if people want to raise participants want to raise any question. We'll have a quick, because we started about an hour late, but I'd like to finish not an hour later, but I want to complete in the next 10-15 minutes. Over to the floor. Your questions, please. PCS कॉन्फ्रेंस में क्वेश्चन नहीं होगा एनुअल सेक्टरल कंप्लायंस रिपोर्ट और सेक्टरल ऑडिट के ऊपर? अरे सर मैं आता हूँ आपके पास, मेरा प्रेसिडेंट बोल रहा है, आ जाओ सर, इधर आओ।
Hello.
Thank you, Narasimhan sir. Kamla ma'am, I have a question for you. You just said that 204 is not at all applicable on other companies for the threshold companies which are falling under the threshold, as per the threshold, and for the listed companies you have already provided for. But recently, SEBI has come out with the circular wherein the debt listed companies, regulation 17 to some of the regulations are not applicable, and 24A is moved out of it accordingly. So whether for the debt listed entities, appointment of secretarial auditor, whether those restriction, appointment, removal, restriction to work would also be applicable on the debt listed company or not? Whether we should go for the 5 years term for the secretarial auditor, or secretarial auditor to continue to provide each and every kind of services to the debt listed companies?
Sir, good question. When stock exchanges and regulator talk about listed entity, they talk about all the asset classes below, which includes equity and debt also.
Correct.
So whatever is prescribed by SEBI will equally apply to debt securities also. But if you are getting into a debt instrument which is about to be redeemed and things like that, then you may have your own complication. Those issues have to be dealt with. But the simple answer is yes, for debt listed entity also this is applicable.
But by simple reading of that circular, entire regulation 17 to 32 I think is out of the scope for debt listed. So 24A is also out. So how to convince those
subsequently
clients?
17 to 21, it's getting implemented for all debt listed as well. They gave a time frame for which it was not. Initially it was not. Subsequently, Sabha, you can clarify on that.
Correct.
Sabha, you can
We
clarify.
have sent an email to the NSC, but we have not received any communication in this regard, and we have got a reply, and reply is like we have to seek confirmation from SEBI on this regard. So we have not been provided with the clear-cut answers to it. So
So
that
the kind of fundraise that happens through the debt security is also not small. We think that
it's a
assurance.
high debt listed,
Yeah.
high value
So-
debt listed.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Manish, can I? Former president, go ahead, ma'am.
The scope of secretarial audit is all laws applicable to the company. I have personally, when we used to it, it's like quite intimidating because the scope is huge and it is so vast. So how do we capture a situation when, for example, there were 140 laws that were applicable or 14 laws that were applicable, but somebody has only seen, for example, 8. And the 6th has not been seen for reasons whatsoever. Maybe not dug deep, or maybe not so much aware that, oh, this could have also been applicable. So how do we handle such situations in secretarial audit?
Whom do you want to ask, sir?
Mahesh bhai.
Mahesh, obviously.
I will tell you what I have done. I have obtained a list of laws applicable to that particular company from the management.
Yeah.
You and me as a PCS cannot decide that because we are not having that kind of technical knowledge. Like for example, the Boilers Act is applicable where a boiler is installed at the manufacturing place, not for other companies. Now, how do I know? Maybe there are 10 factory premises of the company. I am not supposed to visit every factory premises to find out whether boiler is there. So likewise, so many acts are applicable which are specific to the industry. So I procure a list, and then I also ask for the checklist which they internally must have prepared, and whether reporting is given to the board. And then I can express my opinion whether company has complied with those provisions of the law. However, having said so, in case of super technical issues, there is no harm in procuring some expert's opinion about compliances with the law, because there could be some technicalities involved about the pressure in the boiler. You can't exceed beyond a particular pressure. Now, how do I count that? or cleanliness or the particles in the air for Air Pollution Control Act, typically for paint industry. I have to verify that, but then I don't have any technique which will ensure that company has ensured that the pollution level is below that particular standard. So I have to have experts comment on that, and I can rely on that.
Yeah, just I want to respond to this as well. See, sir, just 1 minute, sir. Sir.
Every company secretary, because every listed company will have a company secretary, he gives a format that what are the various laws and how each law's compliance, various questionnaire type things are there. So it is the board, they are reporting every quarterly. So there will not be any confusion. You can take that list as a formal list for any purpose.
Thank you, sir. But I want to say one more thing. In 2014, when 2013 this company came about, the institute had released a detailed publication of various laws, what are the checklists the PCS should take note of. So by and large, quite a few has been covered, but not everything. So as Mahesh suggested, that we take the list of laws which is applicable, which based on which they are giving the certificate, and then work on them. And you can take an expert advice for it. Yes, Dubeji, boliye.
My question to Kamala ma'am. Ma'am, lot of regional stock exchange, particularly the Calcutta Stock Exchange, they do nothing, no trading facilities, practically defunct, but they put lot of penalties on the corporates, on professionals in lakhs and lakhs for all doing compliances. Whether the company is exclusively listed on Calcutta Stock Exchange, will be treated as a listed or unlisted. What is the SEBI stand on that?
Sir, the question is interesting. Answer lies at the regulatory end. But for having known the subject, I can only tell, don't hold me to it. Calcutta Stock Exchange trading function is not taking place for last decade plus. So it does not have a trading platform, and it is at least prima facie not qualifying to be continuing as a stock exchange. Recognized stock exchange status is not there. As a corporate entity, it is existing and it is fighting its battle with SEBI on what should happen to the surplus corpus, etc., etc. Okay. Right now, since securities are not listed, for decade plus no compliances are happening, I don't think it is wise to consider it as a listed security.
SEBI
they are collecting more than 100 crore as a penalty for the non-compliance of the LODR from the corporates.
Let them, you report to SEBI. I think that's the way. SEBI is the authority who can take care of it. She unfortunately is one of the stock exchange yourself.
Okay.
But
No, but still I have expressed my view. That is because I am associated with stock exchange.
Any other questions? Any other questions? One last question. Go ahead. Come over here. Come over to the front. I want to close by 5:30.
So my question is somewhere related to Mamta ma'am's question regarding the other laws. If I specifically go to the report, it says Secretarial Compliance Report. And I have seen in most of the companies there are two departments, separate departments. Secretarial Department and likely putting a burden on the company secretary to give a report of all the legal department, what they are doing, and putting a responsibility on the company secretary that you report on them. And somewhere sir said that we can rely on the others' report or opinion. But when I am doing an audit, how far I can rely on somebody's report opinion? If I am truly justifying and relying on him, so whether I am justifying my job also. So my thing is that we should take up with the ministry or institute, either change the name of the Secretarial Compliance Report to Legal or Statutory Compliance Report, because we are sticking to Secretarial Report, Secretarial Department, it should specifically to the Companies Act, and other SEBI Act, it should be related to that only.
Unfortunately, other applicable laws is coming in MR3, that is Secretarial Audit Report, and not Annual Secretarial Compliance Report.
Yeah.
Therefore, your question is misplaced in terms of the reference to the ASCR. Yeah. But one more thing, as far as that is concerned, that's come under the Companies Act, that we have identified, we have to identify basically what is the process systems. In fact, what is going to be talked about is what is the systems in place, whether in terms of compliance. You don't have to verify each and every compliance. Please go through the MR3, what it says. In respect of generally applicable laws, you have to identify what is the specifically, whether there are systems in place which you need to. But specifically where it is, that is very limited. you have to verify only very few. It's not that you'll have to verify 200 laws. It does not happen in any company.
So that means, sir, I will only have to verify whether the systems were there for their compliance. I should not go in detail to the compliance of the act.
I think you.
That is if I have to verify the system.
Please read MR3. Please read MR3 all over again, and you'll get an answer to your own question. Okay? Thank you.
One minute last thing. As regards Dipti Mehta here. Yeah. So as regards you rightly mentioned, as regards other laws, it says the compliance system commensurate with the size and operations of the company. So you have to say overall management. But as regards sector specific law, it says complied with sector specific law. Now here comes situation, if it is bank, it is broking company, insurance company. So if it is, they have audit under their own sector as well. So when we say sector specific for them, it's kind of a concurrent audit. So what is the view? Because here some clarity is required. Otherwise it's a very deep audit we have to do if we check it. So there some guidance.
See, insurance is related to only a company. There the Insurance Act will come into play that you have to do a complete audit. But if there are like auditor, there are broking. Broking is part of the firm itself. The banking firm is there. They have a broking arm. They have a merchant banking arm. You need to go through each one of them to identify whether they are applicable. And you have to find out what is the system in place. What is the system in place in terms of how it is being done. That's my view, and that's how we have been going about it. I think we have come to the end of the session. I pass it on to my friend there in terms of giving his word of thanks. Thank you.
So just it is a system, right? Yeah.
Okay, so thank you all. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the session chair, Kamala ma'am, and our esteemed panelists, Sabhaji, Mahesh Athavale sir, and Manoj Banthia ji, and co-moderator Narasimhan sir, for sharing their valuable insights on the topic of secretarial audit and annual secretarial compliance. The deliberation today have very well marked the critical role that these reports play in facilitating corporate compliance and ensuring robust compliance governance. Our panelists also discussed how secretarial audit encourages a culture of accountability and empowers corporates to navigate the complexity of governance with confidence. To conclude, I would like to encourage all of you to take the insight gained today and translate them into actionable strategies. It is impressive that we elevate governance standards not only to build a lasting trust but also to ensure sustainable growth of the corporate sector. Thank you once again to our session chair and learned panelists for sharing their valuable expertise, and to everyone participating here with us today. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. So what an insightful session that was. We extend our heartfelt thanks to our session chair, Ms. Kamala K, for her guidance, our session coordinators, our dynamic former President CS B. Narasimhan, CS Ashish Karodia ji, Central Council member, and we also express our sincere gratitude to other panelists, Ms. Sabha Karte for her regulatory perspective from the stock exchange front, CS Mahesh Athavale for his seasoned insights and historical context, and to CS Manoj Kumar Banthia in his absence for practical reflections from a practitioner's point of view. I now request our President, sir, to please come on the dais and present a memento to Session Chair, Ms. Kamala K. President, sir, please join us on the dais. Please put your hands together. Thank you, ma'am, for gracing the occasion. I now request VP sir to please join us on the dais. VP sir, please join us on the dais and present a memento to our expert panelist, Ms. Sabha Karte. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Sabha, for joining us today. I now request CS Manish Gupta ji to please join us on the dais to present a memento to our learned panelist CS Mahesh Athawale ji. Put your hands together, please. Thank you, sir, for gracing the occasion today. Thank you, everyone. I once again thank all of you, all our esteemed guests. So we'll be having one MOU ceremony now. Thank you, everyone, once again. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this 26th PCS conference, we witnessed the beginning of a meaningful partnership between two institutions dedicated to excellence, the Service Export Promotion Council and the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. The SPEC, established by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, plays a pivotal role in unlocking global business opportunities for India's service sector. It supports both aspiring and established service exports through trade, intelligence, export development, and by fostering a business-enabling environment. Today, we celebrate a signing of Memorandum of Understanding between SPEC and ICSI. This partnership marks a new chapter in promoting India's capabilities in corporate governance, compliance, and secretarial advisory services on the global stage. With that, I now invite Dr. Abhay Sinha, Director of SPEC, and CS Dhananjay Shukla, President ICSI, to come forward and sign this MOU, paving the way for the future for impactful collaboration. Please put your hands together. A proud moment indeed. Two institutions joining hands for mutual growth and national development. VP sir, please join. Secretary sir. We now invite both dignitaries to sign and exchange the MOUs. I request all Central Council members to please join us on the dais. I request all council members to please join us on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for this meaningful partnership between ICSI and SPEC. May this alliance pave the way for knowledge partnerships, international linkages, and new opportunities for our members and stakeholders. Congratulations to both the institutions. Put your hands together. Exchange of MOUs between both the institutes. Put your hands together. Thank you, everyone. And congratulations once again to both the institutes. So we'll be starting our next technical session in a short while, straight away. So I request all of you to remain seated for the next technical session. Thank you very much.